So good to see everybody this afternoon, and we're so grateful again to be with you. We want to end our seminar by providing a little bit of a organizational structure. We call this a congregational plan, and if you're a Church of Christ and you want to have an evangelistic effort and do it congregationally, you got to start with a plan. We call this the 10,000-foot plan. In other words, we're not going to get into the weeds. We're just going to give you a general overview. And so after this setting, I'll meet with a few of the men, and we'll get into the weeds and talk about the execution of this plan. So we'll begin by just kind of giving a broad view. In 1953, the American College Dictionary came together to discuss the definition of words. As you may well understand, a dictionary gives you the modern day usage of a word. So the definition of a word in 1953 may not reflect 2025. It reflects that time period in which the book was published. So the American College Dictionary came together and a suggestion was put forth, a modification to the word Christian. And the modification of the word Christian was adapted, and they placed it into the dictionary. Well, I normally travel with that dictionary. It's a very old dictionary. I didn't for this trip. But if I had it in my hand, I'd open it. And I would begin reading the definitions of the word Christian. So let me see if I can remember how this goes. So definition number one would be the spirit of Christianity. Definition number two would be exhibiting the characteristics of Christ. And they would go through the various definitions. But then we come to definition number 12, which is the additional definition. A Campbellite, a member of the Church of Christ. In 1953, the influence of the Church of Christ was so great that they actually added to the definition of Christian the influence of the church. I know that many of you young men have never heard of the word Campbellite. I doubt you've been called a Campbellite. I was 16 years old. I drove Dad's old farm truck down to the gas station where an old fella was a barber. My mother had always cut my hair, but she had been very ill. And my dad said, go get a haircut. Don't bother your mom. And he gave me a little bit of money. I walked into that barber shop, and he said, hey, son, I don't know if I've seen you in here before. I said, no, sir. I said, my mama usually cuts my hair. What's your name? Rob Whitacre. Sit down in the chair. So I sat down in the chair. He says, you go to church, son? I said, yes, sir. He said, where you go to church? I said, the Church of Christ. He says, you Campbellite. I had no idea what that meant. I went back to my dad. I said, Dad, this man called me a Campbellite. He said, sit down. We're going to talk. You see, what they did in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s is they couldn't stop your doctrine. So they made fun of you. And they would use terms like waterlog, Campbellite, to try to ostracize you, to try to get people to laugh at you. And they would say, oh, you're just following Alexander Campbell, and so you're a Campbellite. And they would hope that those terms of derision, those phrases would dissuade people from coming your way. We were of such an influence in this country where we had Christians in areas of government, school boards, civic centers, universities. The Church of Christ had great influence. In fact, some of the great preachers spoke before their congressional sessions, state sessions, governing sessions. The Church of Christ was growing at such a rapid pace, it's been said, that it was the fastest religious growing body in America. In fact, we actually had men that were assigned. They would go from city to city, town to town, and they would build church buildings. They were teams of men. All they did, as fast as they could, were build church buildings. Now, Gary, you might remember them. They're the old A-frame church buildings. You remember the elongated church buildings, A-frame, Bible classes on each side. Brent, you've been to those church buildings with the old paneling on each side. And you can almost, from town to town, they're just duplicates of each other. Some longer than others, but that's how they would do it. And we were growing at a rapid pace. They couldn't stop your doctrine. All they could do is make fun of you. And that's what they did. Today, most people don't know the difference between a member of the Church of Christ and a Mennonite. They have no idea who you are. You know why you're not called a Campbellite? They don't have to. We've done it for them. You're not a threat. They're not worried about you. We're not growing. They don't have to worry because we don't evangelize. We're not out there teaching people. When I was at Willette, we baptized so many of the folks from the Oak Grove Church that one of their members came up and says, Rob, we've been wanting to tell you this for a long time, and nobody's brave enough to say it, but I want you to know something. Over at the Oak Grove Church, they talk about you every Sunday. I said, they do. I said, what do they say? Well, I probably don't want to tell you. They're praying for you, though. I said, well, good. And I noticed I would sit in the funeral home of one of the local chapels at Red Boiling Springs, and one of their preachers would get up, and this is the first time I've ever seen this in a funeral service. All he did was make fun of the Church of Christ the entire time. He called us out, made fun of us. My blood pressure has never been higher. I was squeezing the arms of the pews that were in the chapel hall. I couldn't believe that a man would do this. How disrespectful. I looked over at my elders, waiting for permission to do something. They were asleep. I walked up to them after and said, guys, what's going on? They said, oh, Rob, it's just ignore them. When you're an influence, Rob, they're going to do that. You know, Rob, if we weren't converting their members, they wouldn't even mention you. And then they started writing papers, newspaper articles. And I got so upset. I said, look what they're saying about us. None of it's true. They said, don't worry about it. Just keep preaching the gospel. Gary Wilder took me aside one day, and I was getting ready to respond in the newspaper. I'm not going to let it happen. He said, son, I've read what you wrote. It's all true. Don't do it. He said, never get in a puking contest with a buzzard. You'll always lose. They can out-puke you. I took it, I threw it away. I just kept preaching the gospel. We baptized one after another, after another, after another. We baptized 25 or more a year. And the church just kept growing. Brethren, when you're an influence, and when you start making a difference, that's when they make fun of you. I knew that when I was in first grade. They make fun of you. There's a reason they're doing it. And so it is today the case that the reason they're not making fun of you is because they have nothing to fear. They don't need to worry about you. You're not going to do it. They don't have to worry about some of their members hearing the gospel and being taught the gospel and becoming Christians because we're not doing it. The early church was a church that grew. It grew and it grew and it grew. In fact, in Acts chapter 2, the Bible says, and they that gladly received the word were baptized. The same day they were added unto them 3,000 souls. Oh, I would have loved to have been there. I would have loved to have seen the baptisms. I'd have loved to have seen the people obey the gospel. But moreover, I would have loved to have seen what happened afterwards. When in Acts chapter 2, there were devout men, Jews out of every nation under heaven. And yet spoken in all those languages, the gospel for the first time. And may I remind you that it wasn't all Greek. They spoke a lot of other languages too, didn't they? I heard someone says, well, if it's not Greek, I'm not paying attention to it. I said, what language was the first gospel sermon spoken in? A lot of languages, wasn't it? You know what happened to the Church of Christ? She grew. In Acts chapter 4 and verse 4, 5,000 men in the Church of Christ. And the church spread all over the known world. And in fact, Colossians says, Paul says it's been preached all over the world, known to all nations. And then we read in Acts, I believe it's chapter 5, verse 14, I believe the word added is used in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. And then he changes words. You know what word he uses in chapter 5? Multiplied. Well, there's a difference between addition and multiplication. Now the church is taken off like a rocket ship. Why did the church grow? And why aren't we growing? I would submit to you that the Church of Christ was growing because God put into place that which was required for the Church of Christ to grow. And God was able to inspire men. He was able to put people where they needed to be. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse number 19, he says, he gave to them the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth has been loosed in heaven. And he gave those apostles everything that was needed. The church had everything she needed to grow, and she grew. I'd like to know what those things are. What is it that they had that we don't have today? Well, in Ephesians, the book of Ephesians chapter 4, I kind of get a glimpse into that in the 11th verse. And he gave some to be apostles. And I thought, well, maybe we need apostles. Well, you know what? That was a limited office to the first century. I understand why they needed apostles. They didn't have elders. And so you needed apostles to help organize the church, proclaim the gospel, and they had the keys of the kingdom. There are no apostles today. There are never going to be any apostles. That was limited. All right? Some prophets. Well, I understand why they had prophets. Because they didn't have a written New Testament. And they had to have men inspired of God, inspired of the Holy Spirit, so they could accurately convey God's message from God, from heaven to earth, from God to man. And they would do so inerrantly. They would do so without error. And they would do so as guided by the Holy Spirit. And they did so. I'm glad we had them. They had prophets. We don't have them today. We don't need them. We have what they wrote. We have everything. We're not missing anything. Everything we need is in this book. Now, what else do they have? What's the next word? Evangelists. I ask myself, they had evangelists in the first. Philip was an evangelist. I'm wondering, can we have is there anything that would say we don't need evangelists today? In fact, not only is that not there, we find that the word evangelist is used on several occasions to describe that which was proclaiming, that which was sounding out, that which was spreading the gospel. And I've got a question for the Church of Christ today as we begin, and I'm so glad I'm just talking to the men. Because I don't know if I'd be as forthright if our ladies were in the pews. Men, we have a problem. We have a leadership problem. We have men asleep at the helm. We have men who's given the keys away. We have men that are not acting as men. They're not leading as men. It's not because they don't have the ability or the capability. Because when it comes to your pet projects, when it comes to our hunting cabin, when it comes to getting the big buck, we're all in. You'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, freezing temperatures, 9 degrees. You put it on. You don't complain because you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You don't complain because of the weather. You love it. You get out there and you got your Wi-Fi camera set up. You know what time they come. You got the food plots, the feed plots, and whatever it is that you're allowed to do in Oklahoma, you got it. You got the camo. And you don't complain that it costs you so much money. You don't complain about the lease you got to buy. You do it because you love it. And you do whatever it takes to get the big buck. I'm wondering if you'll go all in to save souls. I wonder how many complaints will be registered. I wonder how many men will participate. We'll do everything we can to get the big one. We'll find out. I'm going to find out where the men are. Where are the men? I'm not against hunting, but there's a time we need to put our toys aside and realize we got to get back to the first century church and find out what did they do that we're missing. I will put this forward. We need some evangelists. You know, I go to churches all over this country, and I'm always looking at, what do they got? I'm learning. What do you got? Man, we got community life centers, community involvement ministers. We've got young professional ministers, college ministers, youth. I'm not saying it's sinful. I'm not. And if you're a youth minister here this afternoon, God bless you. I want you to be faithful and help people go to heaven. And we've got senior ministers and junior ministers and associate ministers and all these titles. Where are the evangelists? Where are they? I want to know where they're at. Do a search, Churches of Christ, evangelists. See if you can find one. See if you can find a website that lists that person. Because I know in the early church they had them. I know it's listed. I know we have pastors, and I'm glad we got them. We still need them. They had teachers. We still got them. We still need them. I'm just wondering. I understand we don't have apostles. I accept that. It's biblical. I'm asking, where are the evangelists? Brothers, if we don't raise a culture and a generation of evangelists, we're not going to be able to survive. We need evangelists. We need to, not everybody. Not all of you got to be evangelists, but we need some. You know what the evangelists and the pastors and the teachers were supposed to do in Ephesians 4 and 11? They were supposed to, I believe, an accurate rendering of this in verse 12 and 13 would be, they were to equip the saints. It doesn't say, go do all the work. No, it doesn't say that. It says, equip the saints. Or I think one version says, build up the body. Help them grow. So what's the job of an evangelist? It's not to go do all the work for you. It's to help you. It's to equip you. And so every Church of Christ needs a few evangelists who focus, hyper-focus on it. And they trained the Church of Christ how to win souls. I'm pleading with elders all over the country when they say, Rob, if there's something you think we need to do, what is it? I said, hire an evangelist. I know you want to hire a youth minister. I get it. I'm not opposed to them. I love them. I know you think you need your family life minister. I get it. I know you need the membership involvement minister. I get it. I've met all of them. And again, I'm not making fun of you in any way, shape, or form. I want God to bless your ministry. I want you to be faithful to God. But I'm asking, why can't we train some evangelists and why can't we get them in churches? Because I believe that'd solve our problem. You know, not everybody's an evangelist. And we don't need everybody to be evangelists. We need some scholarly thinkers in the church. I thank God for every one of them. I need them. I need to consult them. I need their help. I need to read their writing. We need those men. And we need song leaders. We need men that can lead singing. I get it. I'm not saying we want to cookie cutter everybody. 1 Corinthians 12 is pretty plain, isn't it? You know, hands and feet and eyes, and God set them in the body as it will, as His will dictates, because He wants to perfect the body. And I don't believe the Church of Christ is ever going to reach her potential until we get back to having some evangelists in our pews. And that's where I'm starting. Brethren, we need some men at Barnes Church of Christ to accept this role and say, I'll be an evangelist, I'll help. And then we need the other men to step up and say, what do I need to do? What do you need me to do? And I'll focus on it. If you need me to learn how to sit in a deer blind, I'll do it. If you need me to learn how to use a 30-06, so be it. If I need to use a 243, fine. If I need to use a bow, show me how to do it. I don't need you to be an expert in them all. I need you to take just one. That's language all men can understand. It was Winston Churchill who said before the Parliament, he says, my fellow countrymen, he who fails to plan is planning to fail. We have no plan and we're going to lose this war. I believe that what he said is right in the church. We don't have a plan and we're going to lose. And until the Church of Christ develops a plan to reach the lost, we're going to lose. We got a plan for orphanages. We got a plan for preaching schools. We got a plan for all sorts of things overseas. I've seen it. Oh, I love the Andrew Conley, the work he did in Tanzania. Unbelievable. And we got good works in Honduras and Peru and India. And it's from Willette. $1 million a year we shoveled into India. And I'm all for every dollar. And we had preaching schools and Bible schools and church buildings and widows' homes and orphanages and bicycles. And it was organized. And I remember before I left, the elders said, we're going to buy a printing press. And we bought it, $700,000. And we shipped it to India so they could print Bibles. Worth every penny. Organized. Oh, very organized. Well-oiled machine. We have better plans for India than we do Oklahoma City. So what's your plan to reach the lost? I want to give you a 10,000-foot view. And then later this afternoon, I'm going to break it down into small pieces. And I would like to ask you to take some baby steps, one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant, men? That's it. I don't want you to swallow it all at once. You'll get sick. I don't want you to try to understand everything right now. You won't be able to do it. But I just want you to take one step at a time. When I learned to hunt, it was one step at a time. My dad took me out for the first time with an octagon barrel, 1897, 22 pump. And he taught me how to shoot. I didn't start out with a 30-06. If I started out with a 30-06, I'd never shot another rifle. Never. Not at 12. Never done it. Shot me with a little 22 short, and that just moved me forward. First step, procure your equipment. You need your equipment. If you don't have your materials, you can't do it. You need Bibles. So when I was growing up, everybody had a Bible. Generation Z, hardly anybody has a Bible. Generation Millennials, hardly any of them have Bibles. So what I learned is I learned a little bit from Charlie Kirk. I'll mention his name. Whether you like him or not, he's very effective in college campuses, extremely. Maybe no one else has been as effective as he was. And I learned something. Engage them. Just engage. They want to be engaged. Don't be afraid. See, I was taught for years, or snowflakes, I'll cancel you, you can't talk. That's not true. So we do the same. We'll just walk up to them and say, hey, we're passing out Bibles today. You got a Bible? You know what they all must say? No, I don't have one. Would you like one? You know, I've never had one say no to me, not one. Yeah, I'll take a Bible. Sure, here they are. AP Study Bible, I think $7. $7, great Bible, great Bible. I hand them the Bible and I say, hey, by the way, is there anything you have questions about? Anything you're curious about on the Bible? Just listen. Just listen. You'll know what to do after they say it. Now, how hard was that? If you don't have your equipment, you can't do your job. I suggest you have stacks of Bibles. Oh, we don't mind spending $700,000 in India to print Bibles. Why can't we have them here? Why can't we pass out Bibles to people? I tell you, it works. I mean, I can give you a boatload of things that work. That works right there. Just pass out Bibles. Now, I know that we may go to the greatest generation, baby boomers. We may go to my generation, and most people have a Bible. That's true. But you don't. They don't. We need evangelistic material. And, I notice in our church buildings, we're pretty well equipped, aren't we? We got everything we need. Coffee pot, coffee stirrer, coffee creamer, coffee grinds. We got it all, don't we? Coffee maker. We're ready. If the refrigerator goes out, we don't have an emergency meeting to replace it. We just do it. I bet you don't have to have a vote, do you? You just go get it. You don't have to have a quorum of men to decide to replace the refrigerator. You do it because you got to have it. Spoons, knives, forks, tablecloths, plates, we got it. We're covered. I went up to a church in Ohio. The elder said, hey, Rob, I've got to show you something. I smelt it when I come in. I knew what they were going to show me. Just come outside. I knew what I was going to see. Said, that's 8 inches. Best asphalt you could ask for. And it was huge parking lot. I said, wow. They said, what do you think that costs? I said, I'm not very good at that. About $120,000. They said, we wanted the church looking nice for this campaign. I said, well, it does look nice. Great job, guys. Now, what's going to happen when they got to spend a few $1,000s on evangelism materials? Now, we'll spend $120,000 to asphalt the driveway. We'll spend all this money to paint the auditorium. We'll make sure we have the upholstery cleaned, professionally cleaned. I've been in this. And then when it comes, we need evangelists. Well, we'll put it in the budget in 2028. We need materials to help our members bring people. Like simple things are very efficient. Less than a penny. I don't think you can get pennies anymore. Invitation cards. Simple. QR codes on the back. A place for you to put your name on it. And I want to train you how to effectively use it. So I was in Guyman. They said, I think we got these, Rob. And it was adequate. Wasn't exactly what I would have done, but they had something. And one of the men owned the furniture store. And he said, Rob, can I say something about these? I said, listen. He said, they won't work if you just lay them on a table. He said, you got to put it in their hands, and you got to physically invite them. And I said, you just stole my line, because that's exactly what I teach. And so the men are listening, and one man, his name's Chandler. Chandler said, you know what, I'm going to stop at the Pilot right outside the church building tonight and get gas going home, and I'm going to try this. So he said, what would you say? And I told him, here's what I do. So he went up to the clerk, and he put his name on it, Chandler Henderson. And he said, hey, I just live down the road, and I'd like you to come to church with me Sunday. And would you take this? And the guy takes it and says, hey, man, thanks. He says, I'll be there Sunday. So simple. Where are they? I mean, you don't have to be a preacher to do that. You just have to breathe. It's just not hard. It's not hard to pass that. But if you don't have them, you can't do it. And so we've got to make sure that we have the equipment to do the job. Number 2, put it out there where people can get it. So we don't lock it in the preacher's office. We don't place it in a filing cabinet. We definitely don't need to put it in the library. Brother Wendell Winkler once said, the most neglected room in the church is the baptistry. The library is likened unto it. No one goes there. No one uses it. And so you have this stuff just sitting there. You should have an evangelism table, and I think you guys have the makings of it. I'll give you credit right back here. And you put your stuff on it so the members can take it. You put down whether it's muscle and a shovel, or Gary, you had a book you said you written about your conversion experience. You put it on there. And you say, take it. Why? Because you should be giving it out to people. You should be utilizing it. And we need to make sure that the equipment is there. And you say, Rob, is that really a step? And I said, let me show you why. In 1 year, 3 experiences, and I'll tell you about 1 or 2 of them. So I go through this same sermon, and I said, hey, guys, put your material out there where the members can get it. And so David is his name, and the church is somewhere in Alabama. And David said, hey, Rob, he said, that's the first thing we did. We took all the materials. We put a guy over the table. We said, your job is to equip the table. We put all the materials out there. And he said, man, I came back 2 days later. Rob, it was all gone. I said, David, that's great. The brethren were hungry. He said, oh, Rob, you're so optimistic. That's not what happened. I said, what do you mean? He said, just listen. He said, I went back out there, we got more materials, put it on the table. Went back a couple days later, it was gone. I said, David, where's it going? He said, hang on. I called one of the leaders. Hello? Yes, David? You know, we're putting that evangelism table up and putting all the materials out there for the members. Saw it. Where is it? Are you talking about that gaudy-looking table you put in the foyer? Yeah. He said, well, David, when we built this $3 million facility, he said, we agreed that only authorized items go in the table. And that was not authorized. And one of the women complained. And they said, that is not authorized, and it doesn't match the decor, and that's got to go. Well, you know, we want to keep peace in the congregation, so we decided to move all the materials into the coat closet. The big coat closet. I said, David, what did you do? He said, well, you know, Rob, I've been around the block a few times, so I decided to hold my powder dry, got in the pulpit, and I decided to preach a sermon about the Bible materials in the coat closet. That was the name of the sermon. And I preached as hard as I could. I said, go get it. It's all in there. And then after the sermon, he said, I literally stood outside that coat closet waiting for the brethren to get it. Guess how many people walked in to get it? Just guess. Brethren, if we can't put evangelism material in our foyers because it doesn't match the decor, sell the building and go home. This is not home interior. Since when have the women become the leaders of the church? But it happens more than you think. Because the men don't lead. The men just don't lead. I was at another congregation and trained them, and man, I was so excited, about 200 members, so excited. I know the preacher's a good man. And I left, and I asked for metrics every week. Every week I'm going to reach out to John and say, what are your metrics? First week, he did real good. Second week, okay. And then it got worse and worse. And then I can't even get him to respond. He's a friend of mine, and he won't respond to me at all. And so I said, well, maybe he just needs a little room. So I just didn't say anything. 6 months later, he texts me. Hey, Rob, I need to talk to you. What's going on? He said, Rob, he said, we messed up. He says, we let it slip. And he said, we're distracted. We got all these youth activities and all these church trips. And he said, Rob, we just messed up. And he said, Rob, we need to reboot. He said, can you come back and reboot us? I said, brother, I don't have any, we're talking like, I don't have time. And he says, no, you do. The first Sunday in January, you have 1 Sunday off. Can you come? I said, that's what happens when you publish your schedule. And so I said, he's only an hour and a half down the road. I said, I'll come. So I went down Sunday morning, and I walked into the church, and I walked in the big foyer. I walked in, and first thing I looked for, where's your materials? Nothing. I said, wow. So I went up and I preached maybe a little extra fire. And so then I finished my sermon, and I walked down the aisle, and as I walked down the aisle, son, about your age. How old are you, son? All right, here you go. He follows me down the aisle, right? 14-year-old. And I turn around, there he is. Man, Mr. Rob. Yes, sir. You got any of those little booklets? I said, yes. He said, may I have them? I said, you may. I said, may I ask why? He said, because my best friend is not a Christian and I want to teach him. And I said, son, I said, do you not know where your materials are? What materials? I said, you're back to the Bibles. Well, where are they? He said, I've never seen them. I get to meet with the elders in 2 hours. Where do you think we're going to start that conversation? I sit around the table, and the elder said, Rob, what do we need to do? I said, brethren, you remember all that material you guys bought? Yes, sir. I said, where is it? They put their head down. I said, remember, I love you. I'm not here. I'm not here to hurt. Where's the material? In the closet. I said, I would suggest that we begin by putting the material in the foyer so your members can reach the lost. You need an evangelism table. It needs to be clearly marked. And you only put evangelism material on there. No bubble gum, no pencils and pins and earrings and trash. You only use it for evangelism. And you put as much as needed. Whatever the members need, put it up there. You make sure your soldiers have what they need to win the war. You do not neglect your members because they're the horsepower. They're the infantry. You don't lock it in a preacher's office. I had one man say, Rob, we keep it in here. It was actually locked in a locker in a locked room. There were 2 locks. And I asked the elder, and I love elders. I'm not making fun of anybody. And I said, brother, why is it locked in a room and locked in a locker? And he looked at me sincerely, and he said this, Rob, we were afraid someone might get them. Isn't that the point? Don't we want them to get them? Why are they in a locker? I said, brother, put them in the foyer. I believe they're good men. I don't believe they're purposely trying to be bad. They're just not thinking. Number 3, train your people. I'm going to ask a question. I need participation by raising hands. How many men in this room have ever been to a training class of any kind to train you how to work equipment, to be saved, a work-related training trip? How many of you have ever been to a training class to train you? Raise your hand. Everybody. Everybody's trained. You can't even use a dolly anymore without having a certification attached to your name. I mean, they're always going to train you to do something. I mean, so training is a key part in the industrial world, commercial world, to make sure that your employees are efficient and effective. Now let's bring it home. How many of us have ever been to a training class to teach us what to do when visitors walk through the door? How many of us have been to a training class that teaches, I don't know, how to use the new movers ministry of house to house because it is very effective? How many of us have ever been to a training class on how to pass out an invitation card? Because if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't work. How many of us have ever been to a training class on how to knock a door, how to use a Bible study, how to use back to the Bible, believe in the Bible, open Bible study, whatever it is you're using, and you've actually gone through and someone's taught you the ins and outs, how to approach someone, how to work with new converts, how to mentor them? Where's the training classes? When we preach on Sunday, you could get some training, but that's not really what I'm talking about. Brethren, if you're going to achieve success at Barnes, you got to train your people. You got to have classes that train them. You know what day those classes have to be conducted on? Sunday morning, or they don't come. Sunday morning. It's the only time it works. You got to use Sunday morning, the time when everybody's together, and you begin there. Monday night, no, they're not coming. Tuesday, nope. Wednesday, half the church is gone. Sunday morning, AM service, you start training. And you got to train your people. If you don't train your people, they will not be effective. Train them how to use the tools. Have mock sessions. I know several churches that have actually shortened their second worship period, and then the remainder of the time, they have kind of like they bring in a door on coasters, and they actually have kind of a training session on what to say at the door. They have a mock study where you actually watch someone have a Bible study. They actually send some of the members out to pass out some new mover gifts. I mean, they're actually doing actionable things. I love it. I think it's a great. I didn't say cancel your service. I said maybe have a shorter worship service and then add some actionable things at the end. Why not have a training class going at all times on back to the Bible? And when a visitor comes, who says they got to go to the adult class? Where's that rule? What if we took the visitors who come because they have not been here before? They don't know where to go. What if we brought them to Brent's class? Hey, Brent, we got some visitors. Can you teach back to the Bible this morning? And you bring them in there and say, hey, we got a special class for you. And they walk inside and sit down, and Brant does a Bible study with a visitor. Do you think it's scriptural to do a Bible study during Bible class? Anybody? I actually had a man raise his hand. I don't know if that's scriptural or not. No wonder we're dying. Bobby Bates used to call it the prospective membership class. Prospective membership class. So we instituted it. Mel Hutzler down at Northern Oaks, 27 baptisms. You know how they do most of them? They baptize more of their people, visitors. So when the visitor, they don't come to the adult. Why are they into the class on Ezekiel? Why are we studying Daniel? They don't need to be studying Ezekiel and Daniel. In fact, most members have that's not an easy study. Why don't we take them to the prospective membership class and use back to the Bible? Well, Rob, what happens if we have 2 visitors? Hey, brother, would you teach that class too if we have 2 visitors, you and Brant? What if we have 3? Oh, would you help us teach one too? Would you do it? All you got to do is read. What if we promote an evangelistic atmosphere in the church and we make everything go through it? I'm convinced that one of the things we have to do is change our culture. Cultural change is hard. It takes a long time. But we got to create an evangelistic culture where our young people growing up know nothing else but evangelism. That's all they know. And so it's natural. They just do it. All right. I know for those of us who are older, this is hard because we haven't seen this in so long. Now, those of you who are of advanced age, you may remember it back in the 50s and 60s. This was pretty normal. Churches of Christ were very evangelistic people. We carried Jewel Miller around in the trunk of our car. Y'all remember that? We'd show it from house to house, door to door. That's all we did. And we just kept doing it. And everybody did it. Members did it. Everybody did it. Well, Jerry Jenkins, this is a long time ago, who is known as one of the great evangelists. And so I had the privilege of going to the Roebuck Parkway Church of Christ, now Deerfield, which actually they changed again. They had to change locations. And I sat in that church building, and the elders were youth when Jerry Jenkins preached. Now they're elders. I'm doing some training. I said, brethren, what happened to y'all? 2,000, 2,500 members? You're 300? Like, what happened to you? Hey, Rob, do you know Jerry Jenkins? I said, just his name. They said, he was amazing. Now, I've done some research into this, and he was very good evangelist. I said, well, you guys tell me, why was he amazing? Like, what? He said, well, when he was here, he said he called it the funnel. And he says, and if it doesn't fit through the funnel, we don't do it. And he called the funnel the evangelistic funnel. And he stuck it in the church. And he said, every activity we do is about evangelism. So if we do a graduation banquet, guess what? It's about evangelism. If we do a vacation Bible school, it's about evangelism. If we do a creation science museum trip, it's about evangelism. If we do a anniversary and birthday, it's about evangelism. Ladies' Day, evangelism. Everything we do is about evangelism. And he said also, before we were allowed to leave the church building, Jerry would always stand up and he would lead a song. And we couldn't leave without singing it. It was spontaneous. And we always sang it. Lead me to some soul today. Maybe if we promoted evangelism in our church, we'd grow. We're too busy having graduation banquets just to celebrate the high school. You know, graduation banquets are an incredible opportunity to reach the lost. Incredible. We have a whole chapter in our curriculum on how to make that evangel. I went to the elders at Willette. The first time we did a Willette VBS, they dressed me up like a cowboy with a cap gun on the side, and they rolled me down the aisle like I was a cowboy. I felt so foolish, but I did what they asked me to do. The next year, I said, I'm not doing that again. And they said, what are you going to do? I said, we're going to have a VBS about Moses or Paul. And where are you going to find that? Well, Gospel Advocate won't sell it, I can tell you that. But I know who does. Family Bible Publications. They have the old style VBSs, and that's what we want to do. And I said, in fact, I'm not dressing up like no cowboy. I said, we're going to convert people. And so we did a Bible VBS, like vacation Bible school. I made people mad. In fact, I had a few ladies just about to come after me about that one. Maybe I didn't handle it in the best way, but I wasn't going to jump up and down and act like a fool in Bible class. And so we did a Bible-based VBS. Oh, we filled the church building. I mean, it was packed with kids, but that was normal. We always packed it. And sitting behind me, my whole goal was to make this evangelistic with this older woman, Phyllis. Oh, Phyllis Woodard. Never seen her before. And she had all her grandchildren, her daughters, sitting there. I said, hey, my name's Rob. What's your name? Phyllis. I said, hey, Miss Phyllis. I said, Miss my wife, Nicole. I said, you visit? Yep, always come to VBS. Y'all got a good one. I said, thank you, Phyllis. And, hey, Phyllis, where you live? Oh, just down the road. Really? Yeah, just down the road. And so my goal during that week was to eat with Philip. And so Phyllis would go get cookie. I'd go with her. Nicole and I would sit right there. And all I did was, I told the members that's what they should do. Just focus on one person, not 101. So my focus is Phyllis Woodard. And so my whole week, and at the end of the week, I said, Phyllis, I'm going to miss you. She said, you know I'm going to miss you. I said, can I come back and see you? Well, I hope you will, preacher. Don't worry, I will. I went over to her house, and she said, now, before you come, you got to know something. My husband don't like you. I said, well, have I met him? Nope, but he don't like you. I said, well, what do you mean? He says he'll cuss you. I said, well, it's okay. He said, just be warned. I said, okay. So I'm coming up to this house, right, and I'm a little nervous because he's going to cuss me. So I knock the door, and he opens it up. What do you want? And I said, I'm preacher down here, and Miss Phyllis brought your grandchildren. Yeah, she told me you were coming. Come in. So I walked in, and there's more smoke than oxygen in that place. I'm telling you what, I needed a mask. And I'm trying not to cough. I got in there and sat down, and Phyllis and I talked. And I said, Phyllis, I said, what'd you think about the Willette Church of Christ? Remember my transition questions? Oh, I loved it. I said, would you like to know more? Would. And I said, I got this little study called, she said, that'd be great. Baptized her. I'm not done. Because we made VBS evangelistic. That was the purpose. My whole purpose of VBS, contacts. It makes contacts. People come to VBS. They don't come to anything else. They're coming to VBS. By the way, we baptized her husband. It took me a year and a heart attack, but we got him. He changed his attitude when I saw him at the hospital, and he was on death's door. Amazing what happens when that window of life changes. Number 5. I wish I told you the story about Kim. I got to tell you one more. Kim, so I went to Jacksonville. I said, we got to make evangelism become the funnel of the church, and we're going to start with benevolence. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, all benevolence is evangelistic. And they said, well, how do we do that? I said, let me think. And I'd heard this being done, so I said, I'll try it. All benevolent help comes when they come to church. They got to come to church. And they said, okay. So that was the rule for the secretary. Hello, Deb Rice. Oh, yes, my name's Kim, just moved here, need some groceries. Do you help with groceries? Deb said, oh, yeah, we do. Got a food pantry. Oh, good. Can I come by and get some? Yes, ma'am. You can come by Sunday morning at 9:30, and we can't wait to meet you. Oh. I don't know if I can get... Oh, that's kind of early for me. Oh, don't worry, Miss Kim. We do it again at 10:30, and we can't wait to meet you. Oh, I don't know. Sundays are not good. Don't worry. We do it again at 6 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet you. Sundays are out. I can't come. No worries. Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we do it again. I don't have a car. Miss Kim, could we pick you up? Well, I guess. We'll be there about 9 o'clock. She walks inside with Deb Rice, the secretary, sits down on the back pew, and Miss Deb says, Rob, come here. Well, what do we do now? I said, I'll take it. Sat right next to her. Did to her what I did to you. And took her out to eat. And she just had, and she said, now I need a little food. I said, well, we're going to get you some. So I got her the food, took her to the house. She keeps coming to church. He keeps coming to church. She keeps coming to the church. We get a Bible study because we made sure that all evangelism, all benevolence is evangelistic. If you think you're going to solve world poverty here at Barnes, think again. Jesus said the poor will always be with you. I had a preacher call me out on that one time. He said, well, the job of the church is to solve poverty. I said, no, it's not. The job of the church is to save souls. I said, now, I'm not against benevolence. I'm all for it. I said, I want to help people. But what good does it do to feed a stomach and lose a soul? I said, I don't know. Sometimes we get it. Well, number 5, let's make a target list. Let's create a target list. So how many of you know 10 people that are lost? Raise your hand if you know 10 lost people. If your hand's not up, something's wrong. Everybody in this room ought to know 10 people that are lost. Well, let's ask the members. In all of your life, have you ever sat in a church Boy, I'm going to roll the dice here, Brent. I'm going to ask you. In all the years in your life, have you ever sat in a church building when the preacher got up and said, I tell you what, church, we want you to write down all the people you know that are lost, and we would like you to submit a few names to us so we could help reach their souls. How often have you seen that done in your lifetime?
Not many.
Yeah. Why? Why is that not being done? Why are we not asking the members to use the greatest resource we have, which is their ability to know people? Because referrals are very powerful. And I can tell you, I sat in pews forever, never was asked to bring names forward to people that are lost, ever. And so here we have a huge resource, it's free. Free. And we never ask. Do you think MasterCard asks their current customers for referrals? They'll even pay you. DirecTV, will they pay their customers to refer a family member? $100. $100. Why? Why do they pay $100? Cheapest way they can gain a customer. $100 is nothing for them. Nothing. And so it's called a referral. Refer people. Ask your members. Make a target list. I got a target list. I'm going to show the men here in just a minute, but I got a target list in there, and I carry it with me everywhere I go. Every time I open my Bible, I got it sitting right there. Tucker's on that list. He's my neighbor. Every time I see Tucker, I'm going to get you someday, Tucker. I pray for you every day. And one of these days, something's going to happen, old Tucker. And I'm going to get the church to move on in with as much love as he's ever seen in his life. It's going to happen. I can't force you. I'm not going to force anybody. I'm waiting. Life events. Everybody has a life event, Gary, don't they? You ever have a life event? Few of them. When they happen, I'm ready. If your church is organized properly and trained properly, every time anyone on your list has a life event, you ought to move in. But if your church isn't organized and trained, they don't know what to do. So right now, you got people. Anybody know someone with cancer that's lost? Raise your hand. If you know anybody with cancer that's lost. There you go. Anybody know anybody's had an accident that's lost? Surgery? Lost a loved one? Got married? Just had a baby? Lost their job? Depressed? Life event. Y'all know what a life event is? Very vulnerable. What happens when you try to teach people who don't have life events? Mark 10. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it doesn't work well. Who taught the rich young ruler, by the way? Who was his teacher? Who taught the rich young ruler? Who was it? Greatest teacher who ever lived? Did he say it the wrong way? Is it his? Did Jesus, you just weren't loving enough. No, Jesus, you were too direct. Jesus, you spoke too long. Jesus, it wasn't long enough. No. And what's the rich young ruler do when Jesus was done trying to reach him? Who, by the way, was not going through a life event. Everything was just fine. I'm not saying not to reach out to him. I'm just saying it's hard. All right, so when Jesus was done, what did the rich young ruler do? What did he do, everybody? He went away and left. Now, what did Jesus do when that happened? He chased him and said, no, stop, I'm so sorry. I should have been nicer. I should have said it better. I didn't use the right method. No, I'm never doing that again. Look what I did. I'm never going to do a Bible study again. I'm just not good at it. No, what did Jesus do when he left? He let him go. And he kept on. Some of those practical things in the Bible are my favorites. I know it's not theological. I get it. But boy, that preaches to me. Number 2, advertise. Advertise. I saw y'all had house to house out there. I'd like to make a few suggestions on how to make it effective. Because if it's a static mailer, it's not going to achieve the results you want. And most churches use it as a static mailer. One of the things I like to do is help churches learn how to use it. I have baptized so many people using that tool. More than anything probably I've ever used. But you got to use it right. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. And you got to advertise right. And you need some phone numbers on there. I'd add some phone numbers, like your number. Put it on there. And so when people call, they get somebody. And I would make sure I promote events. And I would add things that people are looking for, like Bible classes for all ages. Rob, we don't have a Bible class for all ages. You do now. You get those ladies and you tell them, be ready. Anytime a family comes in and says, you got a Bible class for my child? The answer is yes. That's right, it's yes. And they're looking for that. That's a big draw. What Brant said right here, that you made that up, that was big. I just moved, got children, I'm thinking about life, and that's big. So you got to use it right. And let me tell you what happens when you do it right. This just happened a few years ago. I was at Jacksonville, and this lady walks in. I'd been in Texas for several weeks. I just got back home like Saturday, late night. Nicole wasn't even with me Sunday. She was dead. And so I walked in, dragged into the church building, and I barely keep my eyes open. And I looked over my shoulder. Alan's preaching, and I saw this lady. Oh, wow. It's kind of an adrenaline rush for me. Woke me up. She's not a member. So Alan finishes his sermon. He walks down the aisle, and I walk with him. I just walk right with him. I said, hey, Alan, who's that? He says, visitor. I love visitors. That gets my blood going. So I sat right next, not on the same pew, like in front of, I think it was behind I sat, and I tapped on her shoulder after the closing prayer. She looked up, she said, yes. I said, hey, my name's Rob. Are you visiting this morning? Yeah. I said, I'm a member here. Oh, nice to meet you, Rob. I said, did you live in the local area? Sure do. I said, one, are you alone? Or no, my husband, well, he got sick and had to go home, but I wanted to stay. So I came back. I said, well, great. I said, may I ask what you thought of our preacher? Oh, wow, what's his name? Alan Webster. Well, man, that man sure loves his Bible. I said, yes, Alan loves the Bible. And I said, we got a little custom here. Let me introduce you. I said, we have a little custom here, but my wife's not with me, and your husband's not. I tell you what. I said, we love to take people out to eat. She says, you know what? I think my husband might come tonight. Do y'all have an evening service? Glad we weren't closed. Brethren, one of the worst things we're doing right now in the Church of Christ is closing down worship services. Stop. Don't close your worship. The more you're open, the better it is. Now, I know you got to adjust sometimes. Some churches are going to, church v. church. I don't know, but having less worship services doesn't help you become more faithful. You need opportunity to reach people. Now, you do what works best for Barnes. I don't know what y'all do. I don't even know what your schedule is. But I'm telling you, I'm more and more churches, it's good to get them to come together once a week. Just once. And I'm traveling. I'm going to be traveling Sunday. My biggest fear is I can't find a church open. Because half of them are virtual. Not half, but a good too many of them are. They're not even at the building. I don't even know if they own buildings anymore. Well, I said, yes, ma'am, we meet at 6 o'clock. She said, well, I think I'll bring my husband if he's feeling better. And she did. She brought him. My wife, I told my wife all about it. She said, okay, honey. So we sit down in the pew with him, and we're talking, after church. I said, hey, Perry says, Perry, we got a little custom here at this church. We love to take visitors out to eat. I said, Perry, what's your favorite restaurant? He said, Afina's. Perry, I'll take you to Afina's. You take me to Afina's? And he said, wow. He said, I'm not going to miss out on this. And I said, sure, my treat. He said, wow. He said, can I wait till Tuesday? I got a little stomach issue today. I said, sure. It'll take me until Tuesday to pay for this meal. And so I'll have to work overtime. And so, anyway, by the way, I would suggest don't ask them what their favorite restaurant is. Just take them to Zaxby's. Take them to Chick-fil-A. Don't do Afina's. Too much money. And so, anyway, we go to Afina's. We're sitting down. We have the big Italian platter. And so I have one mission, John. There's only one thing I want. You know what I want? I will get it. And we're talking around the table, and I said, okay, question number one. Perry, where are you from? Perry, what do you do for a living? Perry, number three, what do you enjoy doing? I love sports. I can relate to that. I said, I coached for 10 years. I love sports. Perry, what do you like? NFL football? No. Disrespectful. Ever since they stopped standing for the pledge, I don't watch them anymore. I said, me neither. I don't care what he says. It doesn't matter to me. We're not going to get excited over whatever his position is on standing for the flag. That's not the issue. So I backed off on that. I said, okay, that's not it. Perry, what do you think about NBA basketball? Yeah. Bunch of thugs. Ever since Michael Jordan stopped playing, they're not worth watching. I said, I agree. Not making fun of LeBron James. If you like him, so good for you. Okay? So again, I'm not going up that. Next. Perry, you like baseball? It's too slow. I'm not trying to offend you if you play baseball. That's what he said. Wait a minute. Football, basketball, I don't know where to go. I said, Perry, what do you like? He said, Rob, it's all into college. I said, yes, I think you're right. I said, Perry, what team do you like? He said, go Alabama. Oh, no. Go Alabama. If I got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. I don't care. I want a Bible study. Now, I know he likes Alabama football, so I got to relate to Alabama. I don't like to do this, but I will. I do live in Alabama, behind enemy lines. So I know that I've read an article recently about this. They did this. I said, Perry, didn't they just make a statue of Nick Saban real big in front of the? Oh yes, Rob. No, we call that idolatry, Perry. I didn't say that. I should have. He's the coach. And in any case, so we're talking, and I said, Perry, do you know Monday is the national championship game? He said, yes, I'm going to watch it. I said, why don't you come to the house? I got a huge TV, like 120 inch. It's a projector. I got 7 speakers in the ceiling. When I bought the house, this guy had he called it the football room. This is incredible. He said, wow. I said, Perry, it's like being in the stadium. You come to my house. He said, I'm in. And I said, we're having a football party. Then we'll have food. Ouch, what was that? That was my wife kicking me because she did not know about this party. And so I had explained to my wife about the party that I was going to help her with. They came over Monday night. We watched the game. Halftime mute. Perry, this is not hard. Why'd you come to Jacksonville? Rob, 21 years ago, you guys sent us house to house, heart to heart. He said, it's obvious that your church believes in the Bible because mine doesn't. That's what he said. I said, Perry, would you like to know a little bit more about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? I have an itchy trigger finger. He said, yes. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. Now, from that one, listen, this is, why did they come? Because we advertised. That's why they came. Now, watch this. Baptism, but I'm not done. They have a son. He's kind of like a prodigal. He's home now. And we studied with him. He became a Christian. And his wife, that they were kind of having some marriage problems, not anymore. Studied with her too, baptized her. Oh, brethren, I love the gospel. So you promote events. What brings people? I don't know. I don't know in Oklahoma. I know in Alabama, shrimp boil and Big Pig Day brings them. Y'all know what Big Pig Day is? Y'all don't have, you're in Oklahoma, you don't have pig. In Alabama, Big Pig Day, they actually, I'm serious about this, they dig a big hole, put pig inside, they set pig on smoked pig, and they cover it all up, and at the end of the day, pig ready. Have you ever heard of that before? Oh, okay. Oh, you have? Okay, I've never heard of this before. So they call it Big Pig Day. They advertise Big Pig Day to the community. Come have Big Pig Day with us. And shrimp boil and alligator sausage. I don't know about you, but they come from everywhere. And so we have people all over just coming to me. And we train the members. You know what your job is? Make contact, meet people. And we baptize an entire family. And then house to house will help you. We'll send out promotional things like marriage material, just different things that people might need, for children, different things. And let me tell you about Brenda. She calls, says, hello, hey Brenda. This is the secretary. I'd like to have the free marriage material. Sure, what's your address? Okay, Brenda, we'll get it to you. She hangs up. Miss, I just so happened to be coming by the church, and Miss Deb said, hey, Rob, I just got a lady that called and said she wants that marriage material from house to house. I'm about to mail it. I said, stop. What do you mean stop? I said, we're going to hand deliver it. We've never done that before. Well, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but when I got there, they were not baptizing hardly anybody. I said, and that's why you're not baptizing people. You don't mail things to people. And you're never going to get anything doing that. I said, give it to me. I'll take it. You're going to take it? I said, yes. So I took the material, and we went down the road. And we got over to Brenda's house, my wife, and I always take a woman. Brother, please do not go to the door alone. When they see this, they will never open the door. You're scary. Bring a woman or a child. I'm sure. I'm telling you what works. We have tested this. You bring a child or a woman, they will not open the door for you, John. Now, I get to the door. My wife is in front of the peephole, because it's by plan. We train you to do this. Opens door. I move in. Hello, ma'am. My name's Rob. My wife, are you Brenda? Yes. I said, Brenda, did you ask for marriage? Oh, I did. I said, well, Brenda, we brought it. Well, thank you. Well, that was quick. I said, you needed it, and I was in the area. Well, you with House to House? I said, well, yes, ma'am. I said, that's I love that publication. I said, we're glad. I said, Brenda, I've got to ask you a question now. What is it? have you just got married? Oh, I did. I said, wonderful. Congratulations. Who's the lucky man? His name is Daniel. In fact, he's over there. Now, her whole tone changed when she said that. So I know we have a problem. That's why we need marriage material. And so I can tell. And so I said, yes, Brenda. I said, well, Brenda, did you move here? Move from Oxford? I said, well, good. I said, what's Daniel do for a living? Well, that's the problem. He works all day long, comes home, and all I want to do is talk to that man. Did you know what he does? He gets on the couch and goes to bed. Now, where were we? And I said, well, ma'am, I just wanted to check on you. Is there anything you need? Well, I do need something. We don't have a church. Sir, do you know where my husband and I can find a church? Oh, wow. I said, I'm not sure. No, I said, yes, ma'am, right across the street. Well, good. She said, I got another question for you, sir. Now, brother, I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. This is what she did. My wife can tell you. She said, sir, do you know anything about the Bible? I said, ma'am, I know a little bit about the Bible. She says, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. Now, she says it raspy like that. I'm going to show you a picture of her in just a minute. So she goes over and shakes her husband. Got a picture of him, too. She brings him to the door, right? He's like your height. He is. He's a giant. I mean, he's just up there like this. And I'm looking, and I mean, scary, because I've never seen the guy before. And I don't know what he's going to do. He might punch me. I don't know. And she says, Daniel? He goes, yes, ma'am. I'm going to try not to laugh here. She goes, we're going to teach you the Bible. That's what she said. That's how she said it. There he is. We baptized 7 people because of that. On the bottom right-hand side, or top right-hand side, I know you don't recognize her. That's Geneva, who was living in adultery. Not anymore. I love to knock doors. I know that's scary. I know it is. I know some of you say it doesn't work. I get it. I just think you haven't been taught properly. We only know what we know. And this is what I know. If you do what we're training, if you follow our training, I know what you're going to get. I know it works. I want you to look at those percentages. I'm going to pick on these 3 young men right here. I want you to look at my percentages on the screen. Can I read those percentages? You see those? Is there a percentage up there that stands out that you'd like to say, Mr. Rob, can you explain that to me? Thank you, son. What's your name? Evan. Evan, if I said, I'll teach you a door knocking method where 83% of the time you have success, would you be interested? We have a between 60 and 80, 85% success rate doing this. You know what it is? New movers. If you'll do new movers properly, you'll make a contact 60 to 80% of the time. That was in Granbury Street, Texas, Cleburne. That's where I did that. But I didn't cherry pick that. I just grabbed one. I've done this all over the country. Let me list the states. Blue states, Illinois. Did it. Worked. Maryland, worked same. Georgia, worked. Tennessee, worked. I've got Oklahoma, ask Keno Schrum. Keno, after they enrolled in the school, remember there were 20 members. He's been here, right, Keno Schrum? He's been here. There were 22 people. There's an actual picture of Keno and I sitting in front of their attendance roster of 22. He said, Rob, I believe everything you're teaching but door knocking, it will not work. Well, I was coming through Oklahoma. I said, Keno, assemble the troops. I said, I'll teach y'all how to do it. I said, I got a little bit of time. We'll go Saturday morning. So I stopped by their place Saturday morning, and when he said he assembled I think every member of that church was there. They fed me. I trained them for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then we went out and did it. They believe today. He said, I was wrong. He said, it does work. He said, because I wasn't doing it right. If you think door knocking's going like this, hey, my name is Rob, but we're having a gospel meeting with Branch Stubblefield. We'd like you to come, and you pass out the flyer. If you think that's effective, it's not effective, Brent. I had preachers get mad at me for this. They say, why are you discouraging gospel? I'm not discouraging your gospel meeting. But I'm saying that is a wasted effort. They're not coming. I don't care what the name is. They're not coming. That is not how you knock doors. I'll give you 6 door-knocking strategies that give you those percentages. And I track my numbers very carefully. New movers is a very, very effective tool. Drew came by just to say hello this morning, and Drew's, he directs the New Movers ministry. And New Movers are important because people are most likely to change churches when they move. That's why. It's the number one time in life where you'll change a church, when you move. Now, Marion, when you were growing up, and a Methodist moved from, I don't know, Oklahoma City to this area, you know what they're going to do? They're going to go to the Methodist church. Not today. They don't care where they go. There's no loyalty. We're all the same. That's your advantage. They don't even know what the Church of Christ is. Your advantage. So why don't they come to the Church of Christ, Gary? Because they don't know you're here. No one invites them. What if we showed up at the door and we were the first people to invite them to church with a gift? And what we're going to do is we're going to teach my wife. You want to know what my wife is teaching your women to do right now? I'll tell you. My wife is giving your women a shopping list. And she is going to teach them to go shopping in the name of the Lord. It's God authorized. They have never been more excited in their life. They've been preparing for this since they've been born. They're going to go to the store and do God authorized shopping. I'm using a little humor. But you get the point. Let the ladies go shopping. Let them put baskets together. And go to a New Mover's door and say, "Sir, what's your name?" "Yes, sir. What's your name?" "Van." "My name's Van. If you're all my life, I'd like to give you a gift and just welcome you to the community." What kind of response do you think you'll get? Pretty good. Or you could show up at the door, say, "Would you like to have a Bible study?" Why do we do that? I had one guy say, "Well, when I go to the door, I got a little card." And I say, "Do you think most people are going to heaven or hell?" That's a great way to start a conversation. I said, "Well, how many people you baptized doing that?" "Nobody." Got to send cards, lots of cards. I mean, you should be sending 100 cards a week from this church. 100. Not 2, 100. I mean, a church should be, if you're a bigger church, more cards. You know why? Because there's no better way to love people than this. And you send them by the boatloads. And you find people in your community that are hurting. You find people that are in need. And you start sending them. I've already given Gary a contact already. I've already given him one. I know somebody in Oklahoma City right now that needs cards. I don't even live here. And I gave it to him. I'd start with that one right there. Start sending your cards. She's got breast cancer. Shower that woman with love. Have the women make something and bring it to her. You show her that we care. That's where you start. That's where evangelism starts. And sometimes we're castigated and ostracized, and sometimes people say, "Well, they're just mean-spirited people." They've never sat through one of my classes if they say that. We're not mean-spirited. We love people. I don't love people just with words. I really love them. We're going to overwhelm them with love. They're going to get cards every day, food, we'll mow lawns, whatever it takes. How many men here would mow a lawn if it saved a soul? Anybody? Why don't we ask them? Just ask. Say, "Hey, we got somebody in the neighborhood. They got cancer, and let's go mow their lawn." Just show up. Say, "Hey, I'm from the local church. We know you got cancer. We've been sending cards. Can I mow your lawn for you?" "Well, I'll pay you." "No, ma'am. No, you won't." "No, I just want to help." Her name's Bettina. Y'all see what's on the table? When I got back home, one of the elders called me and he said, "Hey, Rob, would you and Nicole go make a visit for us? We have a hard time getting people to make visits." I said, "Sure." Her name's Bettina. We've been sending her cards for about 4 weeks, and she had some health problems, and I got her name from the local hospital. They said she don't have no family, and they asked us if we could help her out, and I said, yes. And I said, "Rob, she just lives a couple miles from the church." So I said, "Yes, sir." So my wife and I got in never met the woman. I don't even know her. Her name's Bettina, though I know that. Knocked on the door. Now watch how this works. She opened. She says, "Yes." I said, "Ma'am, my name is Rob. My wife, Nicole. We're from the Jacksonville church. We've been sending cards." And just come, "Oh, you're the card sending church." That's how she said it. And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am, we're the..." Yeah. "Oh, well, you just come on in." Why did she invite me in? I'm asking, why did she invite me in? Cards. You think the average person just invites strangers off the street? No. That's right. She always trusts me. So now I'm in the house and I'm sitting down, and she looks at my wife. We're sitting on the couch. She's sitting on a chair to the left, and there's cards all placed up on this mantle. Cards. She asked my wife a question. She says, now, honey, what'd you say your name was? My name's Nicole. Oh, Nicole, that's your card right there. How did she do that? She actually knew where the card was because she reads them all the time. She's lonely. So this is so easy. If I can't get a Bible study, I probably just need to quit preaching. I said, Bettina, what do you think about the Jacksonville church? Oh, the nicest church I've ever seen. I said, Bettina, would you like to know more about it? Sure would. I said, Bettina, I just so happen to have these little booklets. They're right there. And I just did the study. Now, I'm going to cut to the chase. This may be the last story I tell because I'm running out of time. But I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm running out of time. But I'm going to say this. So I'm in this place, right? And here's Bettina. And we're reading Mark 16:16. I've never seen this before. You'll just have to trust me that this happened because you won't believe me when I say it. So I say, Bettina, I said, would you read this one? Oh, yes, I will. Oh, I know what that says. He that believes is saved and then baptized. Bettina, would you read that again for me? Because I've never heard that version. He that believes is saved and then baptized. I picked up her Bible and looked. It's King James. Put it in. She says, Rob, am I doing something wrong? I said, well, I think you're doing it from memory. Would you just read one word at a time? Well, okay. He that believes and is baptized. He that believes and is baptized shall be saved. Rob, that is not what my pastor told me that verse said. I bet not. Alan, would you meet me at the church building because we need to baptize? Now here is the sad part. As she's drying off and we're taking her back home, and she came to church, went to church every time the doors open. We pick her up. I said, hey, Bettina, I said, would you tell me a little bit about the church you attended in the last town? Oh, Church of Christ. Wow. Really? I said, did you grow up in? Oh, no, Baptist. I said, but you said Church of Christ. She said, oh, yeah. Well, I didn't have a car. And they lived next door. And so I just walk over. Oh, okay, I get it. So, Bettina, you didn't go very often, did you? Oh, every Sunday, Rob. Bettina, how long did you live there? 7 years. Oh, please. Oh, God, please. In 7 years, as you were sitting in the pews of this Church of Christ, tell me somebody, did a Bible study with you? Somebody? Oh, no, never had this is my first time. You think that's just a one-off? No, it's not. They sit in our pews and they're lost and no one's ever done a Bible study once. 6 months later, I get a call from Rebecca Pearson. Hey, Rob, where are you at? I said, Oklahoma? I don't know. And she says, I'm at Bettina's. I'm a home health nurse. I check on her every day. Rob, she's blue. Rob, her oxygen tank ran out. Rob, I did CPR. Rob, I can't revive her. She's gone, Rob. She's gone home. Thank God she was not at that Church of Christ because she would have been lost. Brothers, thank you for listening. You can make a difference. There is no reason for the Church of Christ not to grow. If we do our job, God will do His. And I hope this just helps spur you on. I'm going to give you particular specifics. I'll walk with you as long as you want me to walk. Our school is very focused, intense, and we'll be glad to help. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah. Well, you want me back up?